Yeah, so good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Welcome back again to Cannon for a TV. The channel for Arsenal fans all over this world. No doubt you probably recognize this person is on this side of me. We're here to talk about some Europa League action. Yeah. I'm sure you a lot forgot about that Europa League action. But anyway, James, good evening to you, my friend. How are you?
Very well, thank you, Alex, and really enjoying being back on for the European segment. It's the one I enjoy the most. It's nice to obviously do podcasts with friends and people I know well. But when you're also educating Arsenal fans about European football, talking about Arsenal in Europe, it's what I love to do. So I'm looking forward to tonight's show and hopefully giving some vital information, which is really important. And I've been speaking on Cannon Fodder for a very long time, but one theme has always ran through the years. It's Arsenal in Europe, and can we win our first European trophy for nearly 30 years?
I just hope I don't sound like a broken record in this one, James.
Well, I remember the early days when I would come on Cannon Fodder, and I think one of the first European matches we previewed was, I think, Ostersund's, which we lost.
I believe it was.
That's how far we go back, 5 years now. And it's to say it's a fantastic opportunity for Arsenal, and it's a good Sporting Lisbon side that we mustn't underestimate. But we should have enough of over two legs. We should have enough. And you have to be positive. You know, they're in good form. They've won their last 3 games. They beat Estoril last night, and a familiar face scored in Hector Bellerin, who made the move to Sporting Lisbon from Barcelona. But they've got some really good players. They've got Marcus Edwards, who Tottenham fans will know, was linked with a move to England. Francisco Trincao, who came through the youth set up at Braga, played for Barcelona, played well for Barcelona, and he can find himself unlucky to be on loan at Sporting Lisbon. Pedro Gonçalves, one of the most informed players in Portugal, a familiar face in Hector Bellerin, and a good manager in Ruben Amorim, who managed to win them a title for the first time in a long time, their 19th title. And he also won, I believe, the cup with Braga, who are also made great strides in recent years. So we mustn't underestimate them. We really mustn't. We must go full pelt, because this is a great opportunity. And I know our league position, people would say, oh, you know, can you really chance it? What we can't afford to do is end this season empty-handed. We can't afford to do that. Because if that does happen, although they are young, how much patience do you think that Bukayo Saka and Martin Odegaard? They want to win things. And both of them, in particular Bukayo Saka, who came through the youth setup at Arsenal, was given his debut by Unai Emery, is one of our own. He wants to win things. And I think every Gooner wants him to win things. I mean, he's already been through so much in his career, and he's still very young. But I just think this season is absolutely vital. And yes, to win the ultimate would be brilliant, but there are still, after tomorrow night, 13 games to go.
Yeah.
Many a twist to turn, away trips to West Ham, Liverpool, Nottingham Forest, Manchester City. It will not be easy, nor will the Europa League. But I sincerely hope that we can win a trophy this season.
Yeah. So James, we found out literally the draw now this time, the second half now of the Europa League. And can you talk us through the draws that you think potential banana skins maybe for Arsenal?
Well, I stick with my guns and I stick to my principles. Real Betis and Real Sociedad. I know Manchester United are riding high. I will stick my neck out and say that Real Betis will knock them out over 2 legs. Real Sociedad won at Old Trafford earlier on this season, which meant they avoided a playoff round. And yes, they did very well against Barcelona. But I think that Real Betis will knock Manchester United out over 2 legs. And I think that Real Sociedad de Roma, I think with the second leg in San Sebastian in Anoeta, I think that will be absolutely massive. And really intrigued with Leverkusen Ferencváros, because a lot of people forget that the stadium of the final will be in the national stadium of Hungary. So of course Ferencváros, the team of Hungary, the team of Budapest. If you go to Budapest, you realise how big they are. It's not just about Ferenc Puskás. It's about the massive support they've got, how they kind of overarch the city. So I think that tie in particular will be very interesting. And we've been here before, Alex. We've been here before. As I said to you before we come live tonight, this is our 5th Europa League campaign consecutively. Which big European club do you know has played Europa League football for 5 consecutive seasons and not won it? I can't think of any.
I can't think of any.
And I've been to a lot of European games through the years, prioritising European games from Amsterdam, like I've always done. I think a third of my almost 70 games from Amsterdam in the last 12, 13 seasons have been European. So I've seen a lot in the Europa League, from Wolfsburg Podara to Eintracht Frankfurt, Standard Liège, Atletico Madrid, Ostersund and Rennes and Napoli. So an awful lot, a broad spectrum. And I always got the impression that with Arsenal fans, if it's not Real Madrid or Barcelona, everyone else is a pub team. But nothing could be further from the truth. If you just concentrate and look about what you're seeing and not look for the player who's worth 50 million. As I said before, Benjamin Borussia at Rennes, how on earth he's not been picked up is a mystery, an absolute mystery. Youssef Sabali at Real Betis, a brilliant footballer. But again, nobody's picking him up. Alphonse Pedraza at Villarreal, wonderful footballer. But because these footballers are not worth 50 million euros, nobody's interested. But if you look at them and you watch them play football, all 3 of them are brilliant footballers. And I'd have all 3 at Arsenal. I think Arsenal could get all 3 for 50 million pounds. And then you've got 3 really, 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 really good footballers. But again, I'm just a football writer and interviewer, so I'm not inside the club. But I think with some fans, it's just I think they're blinded by the bright lights. They really are. I want to be positive in this podcast and say that we should have enough over 2 legs to go through. I believe that. But should we get knocked out in the last 16 stage? If I hear one Arsenal fan talk about Champions League, I will have to say something, because we've been in the Europa League for 5 seasons, and I would have liked to have thought we would have won 1, but losing 1 final, losing 1 semi-final when we was on top in that first leg against Atletico Madrid, losing another semi-final against Villarreal, getting knocked out. You were there against Olympiacos at home at the Emirates. So we've both seen European football with our own eyes. And one thing you must remember, regardless of what happens this season, next season is the last season of the Champions League as we know it, before it gets changed to a Super League in everything but name. So we've got 1 shot to win the Champions League proper. It's highly unlikely, but we've also had almost a quarter of a century of participation. And that's what's driving me up the wall. I was on Ryan's podcast, my thoughts on the draw. And I was telling him, Alex, about my very first Champions League game as a 15-year-old at Wembley against Dynamo Kiev. Bergkamp scored for us, and Shevchenko scored for Dynamo Zagreb. And I remember the programme flicking through, and it was like a who's who of names. And I remember an elder gentleman sitting next to me, and he was like charmed, like, oh, isn't this wonderful? Isn't this amazing? And I tried to be as polite and respectful as I always am. And I said to the older gentleman, I said, you do realise we're in this competition to win it. You do realise that. But I mean, I've seen an awful lot of Champions League, from Highbury to the Emirates to the very first game at Wembley. And I do believe, and I'll go on record and I'll say this, we have taken European football for granted, where participation is much more important than trying to win the thing.
Yeah.
Fulham reached the Europa League final in 2010, only to get knocked out in the last minute of extra time. For Fulham to maybe win a European trophy, they beat Juventus, they beat Wolfsburg, they beat Hamburg. These weren't poor teams, they were brilliant teams. And Fulham did everybody proud, the whole of England. I'm currently reading a book by Steve Tom called Turf Wars on the history of London football. And if you think about the inception, how it all comes together with the Southern League getting admittance via a vote to the Football League, and fast forward 100 years, and you think, well, 100 years is a long time, but for Arsenal to have almost a quarter of a century of constant European participation, bar one season, and to have not brought a European trophy home in 30 years, it kind of sticks in the gut a little bit.
James, I think I might be opening up old wounds when I say this. And I mean this most sincere to whoever's watching, maybe live now or on a repeat. I genuinely believe, James, that if Arsenal and the board had kept with Unai Emery, we would have won some major silverware. I have no doubt about it. And if you're going to compare trophies, cabinets, it's not comparable with Mikel Arteta, who's doing an okay job at Arsenal, with Unai Emery, who's got a trophy full, or a cabinet full of trophies. So if Arsenal had kept with Unai Emery, we would have won a major trophy. But what do I know? What do I know?
But we will always be in the minority. 4 Europa Leagues the man's won.
Yeah.
4 Europa Leagues the man had won. So if you're going to get someone to win you that European trophy, and he helps us to reach our first European final for 13 years. And then we lose that final due to lack of preparation and players not taking responsibility, and also Emery's team not quite being on point. And then you discarded him 7 months later. Away you go. See you later. Yeah. But our first European final in 13 years, and I for me, Europe is always bittersweet for me. It really is. Yeah. I mean, I love Europe.
You're right. It feels that way. Bittersweet. To me, it feels the same way. Yeah. Very, very bittersweet, but.
And I love European football. I've got so many memories from meeting Celta Vigo fans in my last game at Highbury, talking about Silvinho, and meeting up with the Basel fans and Bayern Munich fans, and doing the conga with the Arsenal fans on Duomo Square in Milan, and they're all taking photos of us and laughing and joking. I've got so many European memories, thank goodness. But I would love to see us win a European trophy. I was saving hard for a potential European game, as I say. But I went to Arsenal Sporting Lisbon in the group phase when it was a 0-0 draw in 2018, when Jeremy Mathieu got sent off and Nani captained Sporting Lisbon, and I believe I think it was Welbeck that was badly injured. I think in that game. Yeah. And if memory serves me rightly, at home, and I want to be able to give something back to fellow Arsenal fans. What I've experienced and what I've achieved from Amsterdam is a miracle, and it makes me extremely proud, Alex. But I've already seen Arsenal Sporting Lisbon. I've also been to Lisbon on holiday and also been to watch a game in that stadium. So you want to give somebody else a chance who's maybe never seen Sporting Lisbon play live, wants to have a European memory at the Emirates or even in Lisbon. I will give a little bit of advice to Arsenal fans going to Lisbon. When you use the metro, you will see a metro stop called José Alvalade, which you will naturally think is the stadium of Sporting Lisbon, but it's not. The closest metro station is the Green Line to Campo Grande. And then when you get out at Campo Grande, you walk opposite the station, and there is the José Alvalade Stadium. There's a big little supermarket built underneath as well if you get hungry. So it's nice to pass on my knowledge as well to fans and give somebody else a chance. I'm carrying on saving for a potential double header at Real Betis and Real Sociedad, but maybe that's a little bit wishful thinking. Who knows?
You never know, James. You never know. So, James, if you were Mikel Arteta's right-hand man, he's number 2, what would you want him to go? How can I say, all guns blazing for all the first and the second leg against Sporting Lisbon, or would you still tinker and experiment? Because he should know his strongest 11, and for me, he should be playing his strongest, irrespective of the squad depth or the lacking quality. He should know his first 11. Personally, I would want him to go all guns blazing the first and second leg. But what do you think, James?
Well, I think Sporting at home will be a difficult task. It's not the Sporting from a couple of years ago. They've got a lot more meat on their bones, and I think we have to be professional. We have to play our best team. You can't pick and choose. You can't pick and choose what you win, what you don't win. But I defy any Gooner to tell me that they will be happy to be empty-handed this season. I defy any Gooner to tell me that. I see some Gooners saying, "Oh, it's great that we're back." We're not back because we haven't won anything yet. So first and foremost, we're not back because we haven't won anything. Arteta's had 3 complete seasons after this one to win with his own team. Hasn't won anything yet. He won the FA Cup with an Unai Emery team, Unai Emery players. So that shows you what Emery achieved. And Arteta was pretty much right place, right time, if you like, having made his Arsenal debut as manager 5 months before. But I think that we've got to really try to win a trophy. Both would be 7th heaven, but we've got to try to win one. Because one thing I worry about is I worry that we'll run out of legs and finish 2nd or 3rd, because United are in amazing form at the minute.
Yeah.
And I think Betis will knock them out, so therefore they won't have European commitments. And then I worry that Arsenal fans will say, "Oh, 2nd to City is no shame." No, it's not. But you want to win. And then with the Europa League, if we do get knocked out by a Real Betis or a Real Sociedad, it's not the Champions League. No, it's not the Champions League. But I will repeat what I said again. This is our 5th consecutive Europa League campaign. Do you really think that a Juventus, a Lazio, a Feyenoord, a Chelsea, for example, do you think that any of those teams playing in the Europa League 5 years in a row wouldn't win it? Chelsea have won it twice. And the Champions League twice. And what are we going to say? Yeah, 13 league titles, 14 FA Cups, but nothing in Europe apart from a Cup Winners' Cup and a Fairs Cup. And what we've hungered after, they've won it twice. And what we like to disprove of, it's not for us, they've also won it twice. So they have their 4 European trophies and we have our 2. But yet they also haven't had a quarter of a century of participation, have they?
But
no, they haven't.
Yeah. When we always talk about, the experience of Arsenal in Europe, for me, like you said, it's bittersweet for me. Bittersweet experience, and I'm just thinking, how much longer do we have to wait for more European silverware? Is it going to happen under Mikel Arteta's tenureship? I'm not sure.
I can understand if you don't participate. How can you win a trophy that how can you win a trophy that you don't enter? I can understand that, but it's the volume of participation. I remember, and I'll be showing my age here. I remember when we reached 2 European finals in a row, consecutively, beating Parma and losing to Zaragoza. And the teams we beat on the way to those 2 consecutive European finals, Torino, Standard Liège, Odense, Paris Saint-Germain, unreal. And you didn't have much football on the TV. I remember I would ask my mother if I could stay up late. But the pride. I still maintain. The memories of Anfield. I remember Anfield, but the memories are a little bit fuzzy in real time. But the Cup Winners' Cup with Alan Smith, that remains one of my greatest Arsenal memories. Okay, I wasn't in the stadium as a young 11-year-old watching on the TV, and then being fortunate enough to speak to Alan Smith one-on-one, and for him to tell me things like, James, I could have gone to Chelsea, I could have gone to Manchester United, but I chose Arsenal because I thought they were going places. They had a great manager in George Graham. I said to him as well, I said, you were twice Golden Boot winner, Alan. I said, did you never receive any offers? And his response was, if I did, I didn't know about it. And if I did, George didn't tell me. And he told me a wonderful quote as well. He said, James, he said, at the back end of my time at Leicester, he said, there were rumours that Valencia were interested in me. And I really wanted to go. I saw what Gary Lineker was doing at Barcelona. He studied languages at Birmingham University. And he said, to live and work in another country and to play for a club of that size would have been amazing. But the interest wasn't concrete. And I went away from that interview, Alex, thinking, here is a man that scored 2 of the most important goals in Arsenal's history, who used to play for Alverchurch in non-league when he started out, coming up against the likes of Trevor Brooking when he started out at Leicester. How different would Arsenal's history be in that respect? Alan Smith won Arsenal a European trophy, and it's still one of the greatest days. People talk about the Invincibles and the '98 double and the 2002 double, but I maintain that Cup Winners' Cup win in 1994 is right up in my top 3. Right up in. It's as if you can't talk. Can we not talk about George Graham then? Are we not allowed to talk about George Graham and the almost Invincibles? Because those European nights, at home to Standard Liège, at home to Paris Saint-Germain, at home playing Torino, they were special nights, even from the TV. But the pride of the Arsenal fans, and even speaking to Kevin Campbell, and Kevin Campbell was amazing. He said to me, James, he said, I'm deliberately going to leave the best manager till last. He said, George Graham was called a lot of things, Colonel Gaddafi, that kind of thing. He said, but if you're talking about a teacher teaching the players and the squad, and how we can all win together, was just absolutely amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And before I forget about Alan Smith, he said about George Graham, he said he always taught him to practice his headers, but I don't know. I don't know if I don't know if the viewers can hear in my voice, but the bittersweetness of the last quarter of the century.
Yeah.
When I'm talking about George Graham and those 2 consecutive finals and the opponents we faced, there's no bittersweetness in that, because it was so authentic. It was untrue. I know that times have changed and society has changed, but wouldn't it be great to do that? I mean, I remember doing a podcast with your good self and with Terry, and we managed to speak to Nigel Winterburn. And I remember asking Nigel Winterburn about that game. And Nigel Winterburn said, James, he said, what struck me was we got off the coach, we walked into the stadium in Copenhagen. And he said, at the corner of my eye, I can see the decoration of Parma winners, because obviously there's 2 of them, Parma or Arsenal. And he's walked past thinking, surely it's not already decided. But obviously, but the authenticity of that, I know that time has changed and society has changed, but we had so much fun. We had so much fun. I mean, even watching on the telly. I mean, I've seen an awful lot of European football with Arsenal. I've been extremely lucky, and I go back to going to Arsenal Monaco in 2015. I was waiting outside the turnstile, and I heard a guy behind me in the queue say to me, we'll beat this lot 4-0 tonight. And I turned round to him and I said, excuse me. I said, you are aware that Monaco topped a group with Bayer Leverkusen, Monaco and St. Petersburg. I said, so you've got to be a good side to top that group. I think we'll win tonight, but we certainly won't win 4-0. It was a Monaco side of Kondogbia, Berbatov, Dira, Subasic, Carrasco. And when Carrasco whacked in the third goal to make it 3-1, I think me and another fellow in the clock end, I think we were the only two in our block. I think everybody else just straight out the door. Straight out the door. It was just me and another guy. I think if you look back, you'll be able to see loads of empty seats behind the clock end goal. And you'll see me in my hat and another fellow standing next to me, I think. But you don't go to a cinema and leave 5 minutes before the end of the film, do you?
Yeah.
And it's especially coming from Amsterdam as well. I've been so fortunate with the games, Alex, which I know is slowly coming to an end. But it's a nice feeling to have. You know, it's nice to give something back to your fellow fan, having experienced Arsenal, Sporting Lisbon. But fantastic memories, especially coming from so far, and it's just priceless memories. But I would love to. I would so dearly love to be in a stadium for a European final when we win it. I think that would be the cherry on the cake. But whether it will happen in Budapest, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, actually, James, before we go into a live chat, maybe it's an unfair question. You don't have to answer the question if you don't want to, but do you think we're capable of winning European silverware with this current manager?
No.
Okay.
No. And it's horrible for me to say that, but yes, we're top of the league. Yes, we're doing well, but you can't tell me that the micromanagement is not driving players round the bend. It would drive me round the bend. You only have to look at that goal from Kevin De Bruyne. Tomiyasu is barking in his ear. So Tomiyasu there's doubt creeping in. What do? My manager's telling me one thing and my centre-back's telling me another. If you don't trust your player, don't pick him. But this micromanagement, it's going to come back like a boomerang. It really is, because it's completely unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary. And as I say, I hope I'm wrong. But as I say, reading the book about, the turf wars, when you see about London football, the fact remains, Alex, Mikel Arteta has started his managerial career at the third biggest club in the whole of England. That's unreal. The third biggest club in the whole of England, that is where you start. So you got Liverpool and you got United, and then you're at the top of the tree in England. Where do you go from there? Where do you go from there? I mean, as I say, I know that society has changed, and I know that football has changed, but you've got to work your way up. Yeah. I mean, look at Ancelotti started out at Regina. That's where Carlo Ancelotti started, Regina, and now look at him. And I wanted Ancelotti after Wenger, and no, we don't want him. We don't want him. No, we don't want Ancelotti. You don't want a dynasty then, do you? Don't want a Champions League, do you? Honestly, it drives you mad. It drives you mad. But as I say, Ancelotti's starting out at Regina. You've got to start and you've got to build. You've got to slowly build up. And people talk about Guardiola. To manage in the Spanish second division with Barcelona B, it's I can imagine with the investment they've got, it's easier than managing a Racing Santander or a Deportivo La Coruña. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, but people forget as well. Guardiola lost his first game to Numancia away from home, and the knives were out then. But as I say, the European football's a little bit bittersweet for me. Yeah, and I just hope that we've got enough against Sporting Lisbon over two legs, because I shall say this quite carefully to viewers and people I know. If we get knocked out at the last 16 in particular, then it's a missed opportunity. Yeah. Then it's a missed opportunity. Obviously, you want to try to win it. You can't pick and choose. But as I say, I defy any gooner to tell me that it's all right to end up empty-handed this season. Well, listen, James, it's always a pleasure
to talk to you and to listen to you. We've got to go into the live chat and see who has joined us and see if we can respond to any questions. If there are any questions in the live chat before, so we can wrap this up in the next 5 minutes. But let's go into the live chat. We've got Gary, DWTT says, hello, Alex, hello, James. Get it right. Where's the S? John Gooner, good evening. Good evening, Gooners. And Colin Young, good evening, good afternoon to you. James, let's go, Canon 40 TV family. Smash the like button in respect for the knowledge. James Rowe, we give your thinking space.
Thank you very much. And a very nice words, but a sign of a misspent youth reading Arsenal programs. My mother used to have disagreements with teachers. I remember being at a parents' evening as a very young child, and one of the teachers saying to my mother, "Your son doesn't read children's books." And my mother said, "That's correct. He reads football programs that are meant for adults." So my son is 7 years old, and he's coming up to me saying, "Mum, I'm going to go up to read my Arsenal programs." And even back then, as a 7-8-year-old, what was I fascinated by? The scene around Europe. They had a double spread in the program, scene around Europe, photos of the Bernabeu, AC Milan, Benfica, and I think that's where it's all started, really. And then it kind of snowballs from there. And as I say, I've been so lucky to have seen so much, but you also want to educate fans and to help fans as well. So I'm delighted to have experienced Copenhagen '94, but surely it can't be too long now. Surely it's got to be sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So, last week we lost the great John Motson. Yeah. And I said to James, literally, for me, it'll be wonderful to see a James Rowe on TV, whether it's Sky Sports, BT, or whatever. I mean, James knows his stuff inside out. And Emerson just said there, afternoon, guys, good points and stats by James. James definitely knows his stuff. James knows his stuff and then some.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
It's lovely. It's lovely to receive kind words, Alex, but also as well with the advantage of having spoken to over 400 professionals, including legends like Bob Wilson, Alan Smith, and Kevin Campbell. Bob Wilson, he was telling me about 71, and I said to him, "How again 71? No, people don't talk about that team enough.
Yeah,
one of the greatest teams we have ever had. We was in the quarterfinals of the European Cup only to get beat by the great Ajax.
Yeah.
We played Ajax with Klaus Neeskin, Subir, managers as well, and fantastic players they had, and they were the only team that could stop us, and they did. And that was their first of 3 European Cups.
But James, I think we've spoken about this before. I mean, some people would define ourselves as legacy fans, fans who've been supporting Arsenal for many years. But is it not generational? I might have asked you this question before. Is it not generational? Because, like you said, the double winning team of 71, it's not spoken about that much. People want to talk about, the Invincibles and what came after that. But it's more generational, isn't it, James? The youngsters don't have anything between their ears about anything that happened, the Invincibles. That's just it for them. That's just it for them, isn't it?
I think it's a great observation, and I'll sum it up with one sentence. It's still the same cannon on your chest. It is still the same cannon on your chest, because that's what it is. I mean, I've been supporting the club for 33 years. A veteran of loads of games, almost 70 from Amsterdam in the last 12, 13 seasons. And that's not around the corner, but it's become a life's work, but it's also a labor of love. As I say, being able to give something back to my fellow fan by not going to Arsenal Sporting Lisbon, because I've experienced that. You want somebody else to have that experience. You don't want to take it away from them. Somebody who's maybe never seen Sporting Lisbon. And so I'm quite lucky that I can pick and choose, but thank goodness we have our memories, because that's the most important thing. The most important thing is we have our memories. You know, Paul Merson was my hero as a young gooner. From the playground to the back garden, you're smashing balls off the underside of the flower box, much to my mother's dismay, trying to recreate Paul Merson. You're trying to shoot from distance to bag that top corner. Watching Robert Pires as a teenager, like a ballet dancer. Dennis Bergkamp, the greatest player we have ever had. I was fortunate enough to interview his nephew Roland, who played for Excelsior Rotterdam and Brighton and Hove Albion. And I said, Roland, this interview is all about you and what you've experienced, but I can't leave Waalwijk here today, where we had the interview and when he was playing for RKC Waalwijk. And I said, I can't leave you without asking about your uncle. I said, one of the greatest players of his generation, the greatest Arsenal player I have ever seen. I said, did you ever receive any advice from him? Did he ever give you any tips or any pointers? And his response was, James, I didn't see him very often. He said, but when I did watch Arsenal, I became a fan, because you wouldn't see him for 80 minutes. And then he would be the one to give the assist. He would be the one to score the goal. And it is still, I think, the biggest tragedy, that in the most important game in our history,
you get to
not
play.
A single minute.
Yeah.
And then Frank Rijkaard puts on Henrik Larsson and he changes the game for Barcelona. And it was just unbelievable. 14 minutes from winning the greatest tournament you can win. And I wonder what Arsenal would be like now if we'd have got over that line to become the first London club to have won it. But we're not. Our rivals, so to speak, our city rivals, 8 kilometres from us, have won it twice.
Sacrilege.
Again, I know these are hard facts tonight, and I hope people have enjoyed it. And as I say, it's not to rile people up. I'm not on Twitter anymore. For people that want to know why I left Twitter and they appreciated my comments and my opinions. I think I've said it before, but I think it's important to reiterate it again. And as I say, there's no malice or anything. As people that know me and have listened to me for many years on Cannon Fodder, obviously interviewing players and managers, you hope to work in professional football one day. I had a Twitter account of almost 8,000 followers, but I was receiving DMs from media officers and player welfare officers at Charlton Athletic, Queen's Park Rangers and Millwall. And if I am working in those jobs, I'm not getting in touch with strangers online asking them for the mobile number of a player that they spoke to, or me trying to explain to them, I interviewed that player in Dutch in his mother tongue because I am able to do that. But when you were confronted with that, it was driving me a little bit doolally, that they are in a privileged position of and they're expecting me to do their job for them, and I was a little bit difficult to take. Yeah, it was difficult to take. So I decided, no, I'm sorry, I can't. It's not being able to deal with it, but you imagine wanting to work in your dream industry, having people who work in that industry asking you to do their job for them, and how that would make the person feel. And so that's why I just wanted to reiterate that. But happy will be. I returned to the interviewing frame and arena on Friday, speaking to Ian Bishop, who played for West Ham and Manchester City and Millwall. So there may be something coming up on the horizon, but I've just arranged with him and another colleague that I'm going to do 3 interviews, and then we're going to see what's going to happen. So that will take me up to 411 since the summer of 2016.
God, James, that's a bit of breaking news because you never told me about that before.
No, it's a little bit of breaking news, but very excited, very pleasing as well. It's like riding a bike; you never lose it. But
yeah,
I had so many overtures the last 14 months after leaving the Secret Footballer, Alex.
Yeah.
But when you get down to the nitty gritty, they are often speechless. Like, I had big wigs at Reach Media and Snack Media describe my work as the following. Oh, James, your interviews are very highbrow. Well, of course. You're dealing with Premier League winners, World Cup participants, Champions League winners. You've got a responsibility to do the best. You've got a responsibility to do your best.
Yeah.
And as I say, in the case of speaking to Ian Bishop, it's something I've arranged with him and a colleague. So we'll just have to wait and see. But not expecting too much, but looking forward to doing him justice and adding to the repertoire as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, do you know what? We've come to an end on this show. Those of you who are watching, I hope you enjoyed the return of James Rowe. James, are we back on next week Monday?
We could do a quick half an hour show preview.
Yeah. Okay.
We can do that. The game is on the 9th and the 16th, so I'll make a little bit of room to speak to either side, and yeah, it should be good fun.
Yeah, because there's quite a few questions in the live chat that I couldn't get to because actually I've got to cut a dash as well. But
okay, no, that's fine. We'll have to, maybe after it will make people to tune in next time and get your thinking cap on. Feel free to check out my interviews by Googling me online. So yeah, it's something for everybody.
Brilliant, brilliant. So Tyrannosaurus, I couldn't get to your question, but save that question or these questions or those questions for next week Monday, where James comes back on Canon 4A TV. But James, again, it's always a pleasure just to listen to your stats, history, everything.
Thank you very much. And just to reiterate to Ty as well, we are men of our words. So if you come back next week, as soon as your question comes up, it'll be fast track first. Be the first one to be asked. Yeah, and if you have maybe another one, we can do either side. So it's always nice to give something back to people. So thank you for your patience, and look forward to answering your question next week.
Yeah. So there you go. You know, the take on Sporting Lisbon versus Arsenal. Are we going to win some European silverware? Don't think so. Anyhow, come on, James. This has been Cannon Fodder with James Rowe and Alex. Yeah, the channel for Arsenal fans all over this world.